Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ida Khan. Welcome back to Medico's Guide. Today we'll be carrying out a detailed discussion and an examination of various types of reflexes found in our body. Let's first talk about the definition of reflex or reflex action. So, reflex or reflex action is an involuntary or automatic, unplanned action and nearly instantaneous movement to a stimulus. Reflexes are found with varying levels of complexity in organisms with the nervous system, and a reflex occurs via neural pathways in the nervous system called reflex arcs. We'll be discussing about reflex arc later in this video. And before we proceed, I have a humble request. If you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Your support means a lot and it will truly motivate me to create more content for you. Also, if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear from you. Your feedback is always welcome and appreciated. Now, which reflex hammer are we going to use? A queen square neurological reflex hammer with pointed tip for superficial responses is preferred most of the times, as its flexibility allows us to apply just the right amount of force to elicit a response from those reflexes. Now let's dive into Introduction to Reflexes. It was first documented in 1875 by Wilhelm Heinrich Erb and Carl Friedrich Otto Westphal. The deep tendon reflexes play a vital role in the examination and diagnosis of neurological disorders. These reflexes, more accurately termed the muscle stretch reflex, are instrumental in assessing conditions affecting the afferent nerves, synaptic connections in the spinal cord, motor nerves, and descending motor pathways. The presence of hyperreflexia or hyperreflexia is considered a definitive indicator of neurological dysfunction. Now let's dive into its mechanism. A reflex arc serves as the involuntary pathway through which tendon stimulation triggers a muscle response. This arc is classified as monosynaptic, involving only two neurons, a sensory neuron and a motor neuron, connected by a single synapse. The sensory neuron, originating in the dorsal root ganglion, that is DRG, innervates the muscle or Golgi tendon organ. On the other hand, the motor neuron, located in the anterior horn of the spinal cord, initiates the efferent response. The process begins within the muscle spindle, a proprioceptive organ sensitive to muscle stretch. Comprising intrafusal fibers, the muscle spindle is embedded within the muscle and surrounded by a connective tissue capsule. Upon muscle stretch, the spindle detects changes in the length, activating 1A afferent sensory fibers that transmit signals to spinal cord. Here, they monosynaptically stimulate alpha motor neurons, initiating muscle contraction via glutamate neurotransmission. This contraction resists the initial stretch, leading to reflex extinguishment, that is, decrease in reflex response. Now, during the reflex, the antagonist muscle undergoes inhibition while the agonist muscle contracts. Polysynaptic inhibition via the 1A inhibitory interneuron suppresses the alpha motor neurons to the antagonist muscles. For instance, in the knee jerk reflex, the hamstring muscles are inhibited, allowing the quadricep muscles to contract. Additionally, gamma motor neurons within the muscle spindle modulate intrafusal fiber sensitivity via acetylcholine release. Let's discuss about another category of the reflexes, that is deep reflexes based on cranial nerve. Now here there is only one reflex, and that is the jaw jerk. And this is controlled by the afferent pathway, that is cranial nerve number 5, that is trigeminal nerve, then the center is in the pons, and the efferent pathway is again the trigeminal nerve. Now, in order to elicit this jerk, slightly open the mouth and place one finger over the chin and tap it. The response will be the closure of the jaw due to the contraction of masseter muscle. Now, the next category is deep reflexes based on spinal nerves. So, the first reflex here is a bicep jerk. Now, the pathway is afferent pathway, musculocutaneous nerve, center is C5-6, and the efferent pathway is also musculocutaneous nerve. Now, in order to elicit this reflex, elbow is flexed to the right angle, semi-prone forearm, place a thumb or index finger on the bicep tendon, and strike with the clinical hammer. The response is the contraction of bicep muscles. Now, the next reflex is supinator jerk, that is also referred to as brachioradialis jerk. Now, here the pathway is afferent pathway, radial nerve, center is C5-C6, and the efferent pathway is also radial nerve. Now, in order to assess this reflex, elbow is flexed to the right angle, semi-prone forearm, put thumb or index finger on the brachioradialis tendon upon the styloid process of radius and strike with a clinical hammer. The response is supination of forearm. Now the next reflex is tricep jerk. Here the pathway is afferent pathway radial nerve, center C6 C7, efferent pathway radial nerve. Now this is assessed by support the patient's forearm by resting on the forearm of the examiner with the arm midway between flexion and extension. The triceps insertion should be located on the olecranon, tap just above the insertion, and this is a response that there is extension of the forearm due to contraction of triceps muscle. Now the next jerk is knee jerk, which is also referred to as patellar jerk or the quadriceps femoris jerk. Now here the pathway is afferent pathway femoral nerve, center L2, L3, L4, efferent pathway femoral nerve as well. Now how to elicit knee jerk. In a sitting position, legs should be relaxed and in the hanging position at the side of the bed, and the foot shouldn't touch the ground. Now strike the patellar tendon midway between its origin and insertion, and the response will be extension of the knee due to contraction of quadriceps femoris muscle. Now another reflex is ankle jerk, which is also known as gastrocnemius and soleus jerk or HS tendon reflex. Now here the pathway is afferent pathway tibial nerve, center is S1 S2, and the efferent pathway is tibial nerve. Now this reflex is assessed by in a sitting position, the legs should be relaxed, and in the hanging position at the side of the bed, foot shouldn't touch the ground. Hold the foot in slightly dorsiflex position. Now strike the tendon on its posterior surface. The response will be plantar flexion due to contraction of gastrocnemius, that is calf muscle. Now finger jerk. Finger jerk has a root value C8. In order to assess this jerk, ask the patient to rest their fingers on index and middle fingers of your left hand and curl their fingers slightly. Now strike your fingers, and the normal response will be the flexion of fingers. Now let's discuss grading of reflexes. The grading scale that is used for scoring reflexes was provided by National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, that is NINDS, in 1993. This is a standard scale for evaluating deep tendon reflexes. This scale has been validated and is universally accepted. Now the grading of this scale is as follows. At grade 0, reflex is absent. At grade 1, reflex is small or less than normal. It includes a trace response or a response brought out only with reinforcement. At grade 2, reflex is in the lower half of a normal range. At grade 3, reflex is in the upper half of the normal range. At grade 4, reflex is enhanced, it's more than normal, and it includes clonus if present, which optionally can be noted in an edit, a verbal description of the reflex. Now in some instances, a plus sign positive is written after a number. When discussing DTRs, adding or omitting a plus sign doesn't change the meaning of a reflex grade observed. Now, what is normal typically depends on the patient's history and past documented reflex grade. Abnormality is suggested when asymmetric reflexes are found. Once the examiner obtains a reflex on one side, they should test the same reflex on the opposite side for comparison. Now, let's talk about the pathophysiology of reflexes. Now, the pathophysiology of the reflexes can be hypoactive, hyperactive, or areflexia. Now, let's first discuss about the hyperactive deep tendon reflexes. Now, hyperactive deep tendon reflexes often indicate upper motor neuron lesions. Pathologically, these reflexes may manifest as an early sign of corticospinal tract abnormalities or suprasegmental lesions affecting the reflex arc. Conversely, hypoactive or absent reflexes are associated with lower motor neuron lesions, occurring in conditions such as hypothyroidism, hypothermia, or cerebellar dysfunction. Now, if the reflexes are absent and there is also a presence of sensory loss, this indicates the involvement of afferent arc. While if there is paralysis, fasciculations, and muscle atrophy with absent reflexes, this indicates the involvement of efferent arc, that is, efferent arc lesions. Peripheral neuropathy, commonly caused by conditions like diabetes or alcoholism, is a frequent cause of areflexia. Now let's move on to abnormal reflexes. There are three types of abnormal reflexes: Babinski sign, patellar-clonus, and ankle-clonus. We have already discussed about the Babinski sign in the early part of this video. Now, before discussing about the patellar-clonus or ankle-clonus, we should know what is clonus basically. Clonus is a rhythmic, oscillating stretch reflex. The cause of the oscillations are related to lesions in upper motor neurons and is generally accompanied by hyperreflexia. Therefore, the clonus is used as a part of neurological physical exam to assess the status of patient's nervous system. Now let's first discuss about the patellar clonus. This is an abnormal reflex where repeated involuntary contractions of quadricep muscle occur in response to sustained stretching of patellar tendon. It's often seen in neurological conditions such as spinal cord injury or certain types of brain damage. Now, how to assess patellar clonus? To assess the clonus, support the limb being tested, that is, the leg for the patellar clonus, and extend the knee, causing a stretch in the respective tendon. If clonus is present, rhythmic contractions of muscles will be felt, indicating an abnormal response. Now, the last one is ankle clonus. Similar to patellar clonus, ankle clonus is an abnormal reflex characterized by rhythmic contractions of the calf muscles when the foot is dorsiflexed. It's also associated with neurological conditions affecting the spinal cord or brain. Now, abnormal reflexes can be exaggerated or hyperactive, that is seen in the thyrotoxicosis, upper motor neuron lesions, anxiety, nervousness, and tetanus. They can be diminished or absent in cases of lower motor neuron lesions or if the subject is watching it or during sleep. Or a pendular reflex can be observed in the cerebellar lesions. Now let's talk about the clinical significance of the reflex assessment. Deep tendon reflexes serve as a valuable tool in assessing motor system integrity, with hypoactive or absent reflexes indicating lower motor neuron involvement and hyperactive reflexes suggesting upper motor neuron lesions. In chronic cases, spasticity may lead to clonus, which is often observed in conditions such as stroke or cerebral palsy. Identifying the laterality of reflexes aids in localizing lesions within the nervous system. Furthermore, assessing reflexes can be crucial in monitoring patients receiving magnesium infusions, as loss of reflexes can indicate magnesium toxicity, necessitating immediate cessation of infusion. Now, what is the difference between tendon reflexes and stretch reflexes? The deep tendon reflex, also known as stretch reflex or myotatic reflex, involves both the stretch action and muscle response. Some experts differentiate between the two reflexes, arguing that tendon reflex is triggered by tapping the tendon after active stretching, while the stretch reflex responds to passive stretching during posture and movement. The tendon reflex is characterized by a short latency response, whereas the stretch reflex exhibits a longer latency period. Now, let's talk about our last heading, that is Jindrasik maneuver or enforcement. When testing lower extremity reflexes such as patellar or ankle reflex, if no visible response is initially observed, the examiner may use the Jindrasik maneuver. This maneuver consists of patient clenching their teeth, flexing their elbows, and tightly interlocking both sets of fingers. The patient is instructed to pull their hands apart while keeping them interlocked. This maneuver causes voluntary upper motor neuron innervation, that is, increase in the excitability of motor neurons, which counters some of the descending inhibition sent by the brain to lower motor neuron reflex arc. It also prevents conscious inhibition of reflex by the patient, as they focus more on the maneuver and less on the examiner. And that wraps up today's video. Feel free to ask any questions related to this topic in the comments section below. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any new videos. If you enjoyed my video, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. See you in my next video. Until then, take care.